Get the Intel, the podcast meant for those of us trying to find out what the hell is going on in the field. Here, we discuss tools, techniques, and approaches that you can implement to streamline operations and let you focus on your craft.
Hello, Chad Gill here. I am the host of the Get the Intel podcast, where I talk with top leaders in facilities management, architecture, contracting, and more. This episode is brought to you by Laminin Coaching and Implementation. We help with strategy and implementation for your business. If you're a business in the construction-related industry, we can help. I've built several successful businesses and made every mistake in the book, and can help you get to the next level faster while avoiding the bumps in the road I had to endure. We help with hiring assistants for roles like VAs and estimators. We can help you set up a CRM to keep track of your sales and project management tools to make sure projects get done on time, and much, much more. We customize everything to your needs. So if you want a speed 15-minute coaching evaluation and you are in the construction industry, email me at chad@laminincoach.com. I leave a few of these open every month, so please do reach out. So today I have Chad Franson here of Rise 25, who has done thousands of interviews with successful entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, and we flipped the script, and today he will be interviewing me. So thank you, Chad.
Yeah, hey, Chad, great to be here. Thanks so much. Hey, we have previously recorded an episode kind of about the history of Laminin and what led up to Laminin and things like that. We'll encourage people to go back and listen to that. But today, I'd like to get into a little bit more about what exactly you guys do for your clients. So tell me, what exactly do you do for your clients?
So, the main thing we do is we call it coaching, but we really do, it's more of a coaching / implementation. It's not consulting and then you tell you what to do and then, bill you and you go and have to implement it yourself. We kind of meet with you, develop a relationship, figure out what the needs are, where we can gain space in your life. And then we implement tools that we provide and do that. And a lot of that is often coupled with a remote staff person, because, most of the people who reach out to us are quite busy and they're undermanned. They have a hard time finding people. So we not only have developed a set of kind of some templated positions that we find are successful within companies, and then we, hire and recruit and retain those people and then, subcontract them to directed clients.
How do you determine what you provide for them?
Generally, it's just we have a coaching session with, first we have to identify who is it that we're going to be working with. We're not always working for the owner of a company. Sometimes we work for a project manager. Sometimes we're working for an estimator, we're assigned to an estimator. It's basically where in your company do you see need to gain production or capability or stuff like that. And then through that relationship, we identify where our systems might come into play.
What are the most common kind of positions that you might, help with?
Hands down, when we can talk a client into it, the very first thing we normally recommend is a executive assistant. They are the easiest, fastest, greatest return on investment that when utilized correctly that you could ever imagine, adding to a person for the first time. So that's without doubt our favorite. Just because of the impact that it has on our client's personal life. After that, project admins, coordinators, any kind of back office type of thing.
Why have you found that maybe an executive assistant or a position, maybe with similar responsibilities, a different title, whatever, might be often overlooked by a business owner?
We run into a lot of times when people are like, well, I've thought about it, I've heard about it, I know somebody that has an assistant, but I don't really need all of that. I don't think I could keep somebody busy 40 hours a week. And so we encourage them to say, you can, you just don't realize. I mean, you're working 60, 80, 90 hours a week. Certainly you could offload a bunch of that to somebody. What would that make your life look like? And the other thing is we try to be at a price point where I can say, I tell you what, even if all they did was work for you for 20 hours a week in the beginning, you'd be way ahead, and then you'll learn what you can use them for. And that's the advantage of what we do is I've already been through all of the ringers of how do I keep somebody busy? How do I work with them? How do I do these things? And there's definitely some nuance to it. There's some training on both sides that has to kind of set that up. And that's painful to learn, but it's really quite easy in the long run.
I know you have all sorts of entrepreneurial experience. Was an executive assistant or somebody like that somebody that you didn't start out with and realized that you lacked later on?
It was almost like on a dare. It was one of these things where, you just keep seeing people who are very successful and they all have assistants. And so you're like, okay, there's something there. It's kind of like wealthy people own real estate. I don't know which one comes first, but I know I want to own real estate, So it ends up being the same thing with the assistant. And I just forced myself. And I'll be honest, in the first 3 times that I hired an executive assistant, it failed miserably. And it was learning from that actually was, part of the genesis of creating Laminin Coach, and that being part of what we do.
Can you give me an example of, a way that you would, something that would cause you to say that it was a failure and how you avoid it?
We just didn't talk to them. For me, it's like, I wouldn't dedicate the time to actually communicate with them. And then when I did communicate, I didn't use a proper method. And it's okay to, probably the biggest thing I run into is guilt. They feel guilty about saying, I don't want to do this. I don't want to pawn it off on somebody else. Maybe it's personal. Maybe it's company related. Maybe it's a blended task. We do away with that right up front. We're like, look, we are here to make your life better. If doing a personal task for you frees up time and mental capacity for you to do something better for the company, then that's good for the company, and that's okay. And when somebody knows you as a whole person, then they can do more for you and help you find those gaps where you can really pick up speed.
So when you provide an executive assistant to a client and they say, well, we don't really know how we're going to keep them busy for 40 hours or 20 hours or 40 hours or whatever, what are some things that that they're overlooking that are going to keep, this person busy?
They always underestimate how much time they spend in email. They just, email is just one of these things where and it's not the time you spend reading an email, it's how you approach email as a whole, as like, what do you use email communication for? What should you use it for? And then the prep time, it's like, okay, writing an email doesn't take all that long, but you get out of your flow state, you're not doing what you want to do, or you're going to respond to an email, but you got to go gather data, pull together information. Well, all of that can be done for you. And then a draft can be made, and then you can look at it and make a solid decision. So yes, a 5-minute email probably costs you 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes. So if we can get that down to a 2 or 3 minute operation, we're really clawing back a lot of time. And then forcing all that into a block, say, hey, we're going to respond to all emails at 11 o'clock. Okay, well, great. I will make sure you have everything ready for you so you can just, sift right through those. So
Yeah. You said you also would, if necessary, provide a project manager. How do you know, when do you determine that there's a glaring hole or a need for that?
Most of the time, people will tell you right out the bat, they're the people who are too busy to meet with you. Oh, God, I'd love to, man. That sounds great. I just can't get together. Okay, you're probably the right person. And then it's looking at things that construction is eat up with people. This mindset is the people that are really, really good in the field. And they're a great field player. They're good with their hands. They can see mechanisms and things and processes in the operations and do scheduling. That's not often coupled with tech savvy, highly documenting type of people. They're great skills in separate places, but if you're looking for that unicorn that has both, they're pretty rare. So it's a place that is ripe with that kind of aid.
So when you bring somebody like this on board, a project manager, an executive assistant, or somebody else on board for a client, are they working at the location or are they most often remote?
All of our people are dedicated to one client. Each person is dedicated to one client full time, and they are always remote. And we do get a lot of questions about that and pushback, but that works well. Remote has a couple of weird advantages that people don't normally anticipate are going to be. And I mean, for instance, if you're going to, people say, well, how am I supposed to work remote? How am I going to know what they're doing? How am I going to convey information to them? Well, that's the whole thing. We have to teach you how to delegate. We have to have accountability measures in place. And by virtue of working remote, we force you to really think through and say what you want done and how you want it done, which is what you should be doing for complete delegation anyway. But this kind of puts it right out there in the raw. If you don't do it correctly, then it won't work remote, and we're going to have questions for you. Then we know how to do it, so that's good. But yeah, it kind of increases the value of the whole process, and the remote makes it harder for you to cheat, if that makes sense.
Are there some technological systems that have to be set up then in order to make that effective?
We do, and there's an array of different tools that can be used. We have a few that we're just used to, and it boils down to, we have situations where, we had a client ask me one time and says, hey, I need a password sharing software. I was like, yes, you do, and he says, well, I want you to find me the top 5 and let me choose between those top 5 and evaluate them. I was like, we're not doing that. Here's the one we use. You use this one. He goes, how do I know it's the best? I was like, you emailed me your password yesterday. So whatever we do is better. The goal here is to get a system in place and not get bogged down. So we have some favorites we use, whether it's, dealing with ClickUp or Salesforce. And it's always about if you have an existing system, we can just fall right into. That's what we want to do. Change as little as possible, but get maximum efficacy out of what you have.
So last question for you. A client comes to you for coaching. You supply them with, you recognize some various holes that they might have in their system, maybe supply them with people that can fill the holes. Then what is their relationship with you after that?
So typically we'll do a 3-month coaching arrangement, and that is where we help onboard the remote person. Once you've onboarded 1 or 2 remote people, certainly after the first one, if you're going with a repeat position, the coaching doesn't have to be there for that. We may be coaching for other aspects, but what we want to do is make sure that we document that trail so that then you can bring more on and follow that process and follow that trail. And then, see where else it goes from there. It's that initial, how do I work remote well? We got to get that in training first for it to work. I mean, there's plenty of ways to get remote personnel, but that first 3 months is critical with your first employee to get it just right or just close for you to be successful in the long run.
Okay, last question. What is a often overlooked element of remote work that people don't realize, but once you have it, it's like, oh, that's pretty easy?
So working with our executives, hands down, the thing they never thought about that we absolutely do is we have our executive assistants do their personal scheduling. And I mean, very personal, like, oftentimes I'll meet with an executive and say, hey, how much time do you spend, their spouse is always one more time with them. I was like, well, let's just have your assistant start scheduling dates between you and your spouse, you and your friends from college that you love to hang out with but never see and stuff like that. Because then they're going to seem a little weird. I was like, it might, but the thing is, you're going to be on dates with your wife. You're going to see your husband. You're going to do these things. And that's what life is about. That is the most important thing. So you want to make sure you invest in it. And so when we first pitched that idea to people, they're thrown. But after a month or 2 of doing it, they're like, oh my gosh, I never would have done this, but it makes everything so much better. And if your home life is better, then your work life is going to be better. And it's all around a much better situation.
Yeah, sounds like it. Hey, Chad, it's been great to talk to you. Thanks so much for sharing your insights on this with me.
Thank you, Chad. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
Okay. So long, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Get the Intel. We'll see you next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.